My name is Michael Brennan, and my official job title is Temporal Continuity Agent for the Chronological Coherence Division. Don't expect that to make immediate sense. It took me 2 years of training to understand it myself. What I do is simple in theory. I fix mistakes in time. When someone travels to the past and changes something they shouldn't have changed, I go there and correct it. I put things back on track. I keep the timeline stable. Simple, right? Wrong. I'm recording this because it needs to be on the record. Because soon, I might not be able to tell which version of me is the original anymore, or if that even matters. Let me start from the beginning. From my beginning, at least. 3 months ago, I received my first solo mission. Temporal anomaly designated as Echo 7. Location: Boston, Massachusetts. Date: March 15th, 2019. The briefing was straightforward. An unauthorized time traveler had prevented a car accident. He saved a woman named Sarah Mitchell, who was supposed to die that day. Sounds noble, right? Even heroic. But Sarah Mitchell was the mother of David Mitchell, who in 2034 would develop a critical theory about singularity containment. That theory would prevent a reactor collapse that would kill 73,000 people. Without his mother's death, David would never go into physics. He would never develop the theory. 73,000 would die. One life for 73,000. The math was clear. My job was to make sure Sarah Mitchell died at that intersection. I remember arriving in Boston 3 hours before the scheduled accident. March in Boston is cold, gray. Fog dragged itself between the buildings. I wore a coat I bought at a thrift store, fake documents in my pocket, a temporal anchoring device on my wrist hidden under my sleeve. The device was my safety line. As long as I wore it, I stayed anchored to my own timeline. No matter what I changed, when I returned to my present, everything would be as it should be. I would be the only constant. At least that's what the training said. I found Sarah Mitchell having coffee at a bakery on Commonwealth Avenue. Short blonde hair, navy blue jacket, laughing at something on her phone. She looked so alive, so present. In 2 hours and 40 minutes, she would be dead. I sat 3 tables behind her. I drank coffee that didn't taste like anything. I watched. Protocol required observation, making sure no other variables interfered, that everything happened exactly as it should. At 2:32 in the afternoon, she paid her bill. She walked outside. She turned left toward the intersection at Dartmouth Street. I followed her. The timeline showed the event at 3:07 in the afternoon. Drunk driver would lose control of his vehicle. He would jump the curb. Instant death from head trauma. The unauthorized traveler had created a deviation. He blocked the street with an illegally parked delivery truck. Sarah would pass by Dartmouth 5 minutes later. She would miss the accident. My job was to move the truck. I approached the vehicle. The driver was in a nearby store. I looked around. Nobody paying attention. I used an electronic bypass device, part of my standard equipment. I opened the door. I started the engine. And then I saw her reflected in the side mirror. Sarah had stopped. She was looking at me, not with suspicion, with recognition. "Michael," she said. My blood went cold. She shouldn't know my name. This wasn't in the files. This wasn't possible. "I'm sorry," she continued, walking closer. "You look exactly like someone I met a few years ago. Michael Brennan." Every cell in my body screamed at me to get out of there. Protocols were clear. 0 interaction with targets, 0 personal contamination. But she'd already said my name. It was already too late. "Must be a mistake," I managed to say. She tilted her head. "Maybe. But you have a scar on your left wrist, shaped like a crescent. Accident with glass when you were 8 years old." My hand went instinctively to my sleeve. How did she know that? This scar was covered. "Where did we meet?" I asked, breaking every protocol. She smiled, sad. Not yet. But you told me about the scar. You told me many things, Michael, about your work, about the impossible choices, about... A truck honked. The delivery truck driver was coming back, yelling at me to get out of his truck. I looked at my watch. 2:53 in the afternoon. 14 minutes until the accident. I need to go, I said, stepping out of the truck. I know, she answered. You always need to. I walked in the opposite direction, heart pounding, mind spinning. I looked back once. She was still there, watching me with an expression I couldn't decipher. At 3:07 in the afternoon, exactly as the files predicted, the drunk driver lost control. The truck still blocked the street. Sarah passed by 5 minutes later, unharmed, alive. I returned to my time immediately. The anchoring device pulled me back through the temporal flow, sensation of falling, then solidity. The return room was as I'd left it. Cold lights, white walls, technician checking monitors. Status? He asked. Anomaly not corrected, I reported. Unforeseen interference. He frowned. Elaborate. The target recognized me. She knew personal details. This wasn't in the briefing. The technician typed something. Impossible. You never encountered Sarah Mitchell before. Timeline confirms it. She said my name. She described a scar that was covered. Retroactive contamination, he murmured. Supervisor Ortega needs to see this. Supervisor Ortega was a woman in her early 50s, gray hair pulled back in a tight bun, eyes that seemed to see through people. She reviewed my report 3 times before speaking. You created a loop, she said finally. How? I didn't change anything. She's the one who recognized me, because you will meet her in her future. Your past, understand? Ortega leaned forward. At some point in your timeline, you've already met her. Or you will meet her. Time isn't linear for us, Agent Brennan. It's a tangled ball of yarn. But I never... Not yet. The key word is yet. She knows you because you will tell her. You will tell her because she knows. Causal loop, stable paradox. My head hurt. So what do I do? You go back. You complete the mission. But this time, she paused. Don't talk to her, no matter what she says. I returned 24 hours later. Same date. Same cold and gray Boston. But something was different. I couldn't identify what. The streets looked the same. The people, the cars, the cloudy sky. Everything identical. And yet, there was a quality to the light. A slightly wrong angle to the shadows. I found Sarah at the same bakery. Same table. Same navy blue jacket. But when she looked up, she didn't recognize me. Relief flooded my chest. Good. No contamination this time. I would simply complete the mission. Remove the truck. Make sure the accident happened as scheduled. Except... At 2:40 in the afternoon, a man entered the bakery. Tall. My coat. My face. Me. He sat 3 tables behind Sarah. Exactly where I'd sat the first time. He ordered coffee. He looked at her with an expression I recognized. Guilt mixed with determination. I was looking at myself. My stomach turned. This wasn't possible. I was here. How could there be another me? The other Michael. I'll call him Michael too. Stood up when Sarah left. He followed her. I followed them both, keeping my distance. I watched Michael too approach the truck. I watched Sarah stop. I watched her say Michael with that same recognition. I watched the conversation I'd had with her, word for word. But how? I was here now, not there. I couldn't be in two places. Unless every time I returned, I created a new me. A new version that executed the mission while the previous one continued existing somewhere. The accident happened. 3:07 in the afternoon. Sarah survived. Again. I returned trembling. I saw another me, I reported to Ortega. Doing exactly what I did the first time. How is that possible? She sighed. Sit down, Agent Brennan. What she told me over the next 2 hours destroyed my understanding of reality. Every time a temporal agent returns to fix a deviation, they don't actually change the past. They create a new branch. A parallel timeline where the correction was made. But the original timeline, the one where the agent first failed, continues to exist, and the agent who failed continues to exist in it. So there's another me out there, I said. Still in the timeline where Sarah survived. Not just one. Every return creates another. You've returned twice now. There are 3 Michael Brennans existing simultaneously, each in different timelines, each believing they're the original. My world tilted. But the anchoring device anchors your consciousness to what you perceive as your original timeline. But consciousness isn't singular. Every version of you has an anchoring device. Every version believes they're the prime version. Then which one am I? Ortega looked at me with something that might have been pity. Does it matter? You're all equally real. All equally valid. All equally trapped in the consequences of trying to maintain temporal coherence. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw myself. Multiple versions, each making the same choices, each creating more versions. How many Michael Brennans were out there? How many timelines had I splintered into existence? The next morning, I requested to see the full file on Echo 7. What I found changed everything. Sarah Mitchell wasn't just anyone. According to extended records that hadn't been in my initial briefing, she would go on to become one of the founding scientists of temporal travel itself. Not in my timeline, in others. The timelines where she survived. In those timelines, David Mitchell died young. Not from a reactor collapse, but from childhood illness. Sarah, devastated, poured herself into physics, into understanding time, into finding a way to bring him back. She succeeded. But her version of temporal travel was different from ours, more aggressive. She believed in direct intervention, in changing things, in saving people regardless of consequences. In timelines where she lived, she created a temporal war. Factions fighting over which version of history should be real. Millions died in the paradoxes and collapses. Our timeline prevented that by making sure she died at that intersection. One life for millions. But also, one life for the chance at something different, something better. And I had failed to end it. I went to Ortega with what I'd found. You knew this, I said. You knew Sarah Mitchell would become a threat. We knew she could become one. Probability. Not certainty. And you sent me anyway, knowing I might fail. Knowing it might create multiple versions. The mission parameters were clear, Agent Brennan. Were they? Or did you want me to fail? Create enough Michaels that one of us would eventually succeed? Ortega's expression didn't change. What are you suggesting? That I'm not the first temporal agent to be fragmented like this. That this is part of the design. Create enough versions and statistically one accomplishes the objective. She stood. This conversation is over. You're being reassigned. To what? Another impossible mission? Another fragmentation? To desk work. You're clearly not stable enough for field operations anymore. But I couldn't let it go. I couldn't stop thinking about the other versions of me. about what they were doing, about whether they'd succeeded where I'd failed. I used my access credentials to pull up parallel timeline data. Technically illegal. I didn't care. What I found was worse than I imagined. There were 14 Michael Brennans across various timelines, 14 versions of me, each trying to complete the same mission, each failing in slightly different ways. One Michael had managed to move the truck. Sarah died. Mission complete. Except that Michael hung himself 3 weeks later. The guilt ate him alive. Another Michael tried to warn Sarah directly, tell her what was coming. She thought he was insane. Called police. He was arrested. Disappeared into bureaucracy. A third Michael decided to save her intentionally. Actively prevented the accident. Last records showed him in psychiatric care, mind fractured by the moral weight of choosing between millions of lives. On and on. 14 versions. 14 failures in different shapes. And I was number 15. I accessed the temporal communication network, another illegal act. At this point, I was collecting them. If there were other versions of me, maybe I could talk to them, coordinate, find a solution none of us could find alone. The connection took hours to establish. Temporal frequencies don't align easily. But eventually... Hello? My voice. Not quite mine. Inflection slightly different. Timeline divergence creating linguistic drift. "This is Michael Brennan," I said. "Primary designation T15. Is this... me?" Pause. "Jesus. You figured it out too. How many of us are on this channel?" 6 so far. T3, T7, T9, T11, T13, and now you. The others, we can't reach them. Either their timelines are too divergent or they're... He didn't finish. "Dead. You can say it." "Yeah, dead." Another voice joined. "This is T7. Listen, we don't have much time. The Coherence Division is probably already tracking this communication. We need to make this count." "Agreed," said T9. "I've been analyzing the Sarah Mitchell problem from my timeline. I think I found something." "What?" I asked. "We're asking the wrong question. It's not about whether Sarah lives or dies. It's about what she becomes if she lives. In timelines where she lives and David dies, she becomes the temporal war Sarah. But what if there's a third option? Elaborate. What if David doesn't die? What if we prevent both deaths?" T3 laughed bitterly. "That's not our mission. We were sent to maintain timeline stability, not rewrite it." "Fuck the mission," T9 shot back. "Look where the mission got us. 14 fragmented versions of ourselves. Suicide. Psychiatric collapse. We tried doing it their way. It doesn't work." "So what are you proposing?" I asked. "A different intervention. We save Sarah, but we also save David. Keep him alive past his supposed death date. Give Sarah a reason to live that doesn't involve temporal warfare." T7 cut in. "The illness that kills David in those timelines. It's preventable. Rare genetic disorder. Treatable if caught early. We have the medical knowledge. We could arrange for early screening." "That's massive timeline disruption," T13 warned. "We'd be creating an entirely new branch." "We're already in entirely new branches," I said. "Every version of us exists in a different timeline. We can't uncreate what's already been done, but maybe we can create something better." Silence as we all considered it. T3 spoke first. "I'm in. I've got nothing left to lose anyway." "Same," said T7. One by one we all agreed. 6 versions of Michael Brennan. 6 timelines. 6 chances to try something different. The operation took months to coordinate, each of us working in our respective timelines, creating apparently random interventions that would lead to David Mitchell being diagnosed early, medical records altered, specialist appointments accidentally scheduled, medication prescribed for what seemed like unrelated conditions, We couldn't communicate directly once we started. The Coherence Division was monitoring for temporal anomalies. We had to work blind, trust that the others were doing their parts. I handled my timeline's intervention personally, hacked into medical databases, forged a genetic screening result that would be sent to Sarah Mitchell. Made it look like routine procedure. When the results came back positive for the genetic disorder, Sarah took David to specialists. They caught it early, started treatment. David lived, and Sarah never became the temporal war scientist, never lost her son, never dove into physics as escape from grief. Instead, she became a teacher, married, had another child, lived a quiet, stable life. David grew up, became brilliant in his own right, studied physics like the original timeline, but motivated by curiosity, not by tragedy. He developed the singularity containment theory even earlier, even better. The reactor collapse never happened. 73,000 lived, and Sarah Mitchell lived too. The equation balanced differently. No lives traded, just better. I waited for the Coherence Division to come for me, for the arrest, the trial, the punishment for massive unauthorized timeline disruption. They never came. Instead, 3 weeks after David's successful treatment, I received a message on the illegal temporal network. This is T9. It worked. David's alive in my timeline. Sarah's stable. No temporal war, no paradoxes. It actually fucking worked. T7 confirming. Same results. Timeline stable. No collapse. One by one, the other Michaels reported in. All 6 interventions successful. All 6 timelines stable. We'd done it. Not by following the mission, by abandoning it. A month later, I was summoned to Ortega's office. I expected termination, court-martial, something. Instead, Ortega looked tired. "Sit down, Brennan." I sat. She pulled up multiple timeline displays, showed the Sarah Mitchell branches, all stable, all peaceful, all avoiding the temporal war scenarios. "You and your other selves went rogue," she said, "violated every protocol, created massive unauthorized interventions. Yes, and somehow, it worked, better than the original mission parameters. Yes." She leaned back. "Do you know how rare that is? How often rogue agents create catastrophic collapses?" "I don't. Nearly always. The math is brutal. Interventions create ripples. Ripples create conflicts. Conflicts create paradoxes. We've lost entire timelines to well-meaning agents trying to fix things their way. But not this time. Not this time." She studied me. "Why? Why did your intervention work when others fail?" I thought about it. "Because we weren't trying to enforce a single timeline. We weren't trying to prevent change. We were trying to create better outcomes. And we accepted that those outcomes might exist across multiple timelines. We didn't need to collapse everything into one correct version." Ortega nodded slowly. "The Coherence Division has operated under a single assumption since temporal travel began. That there must be one prime timeline, one correct version of events. That our job is to maintain that timeline against all deviations. And maybe we've been wrong. Maybe the goal isn't coherence. Maybe it's optimization. Creating the best possible outcomes across multiple timelines, even if that means accepting divergence." They didn't punish me. Instead, they offered me a position, head of a new department. Temporal optimization instead of temporal coherence. My job would be to find situations like Echo 7, where the correct timeline created suffering, where intervention might create better outcomes, and to coordinate with my other selves across timelines to make those interventions. I accepted. Over the next year, I reconnected with all 14 Michael Brennans, even the ones who'd seemed lost. We formed a network. The Plural Selves Initiative, we called it. We shared information across timelines, warned each other about upcoming problems, coordinated interventions that benefited multiple branches simultaneously. We saved thousands, maybe millions, hard to count when you're working across realities, and we learned to live with being multiple, with existing in fragments across quantum possibility. It wasn't easy. Some days I woke up not sure which timeline I was in, which version of events was mine, whether a memory was something I experienced or something another Michael told me about. But there was freedom in it too. Freedom from the illusion of singular identity, from the belief that there was one true version of me. I was all of them, and none of them. And that was okay. 5 years into the work, something unexpected happened. I received a message from a timeline we'd never contacted before. Designation T1, the original Michael, the first version who'd failed the mission. "This is T1, the message said. "I need to meet. In person. Temporal coordinates attached. It's about Sarah." I jumped to the coordinates. Neutral temporal zone. A space between timelines where different versions could meet physically without causing paradoxes. T1 was waiting. He looked like me, obviously, but older, worn down, like he'd carried weight the rest of us had been spared. "You started this," I said. "The first failure, the first version." "Yeah." He looked at his hands. "I couldn't do it. Couldn't move that truck. Couldn't let her die. I froze. And because I froze, all of you exist. Why contact me now? Because I've been tracking what you've all done. The interventions, the optimizations, the lives saved, and I needed you to know." He met my eyes. "Thank you. For finishing what I couldn't. For finding the better way. We couldn't have done it without you failing first. Your failure created us. Maybe. But you turned that failure into something good. That takes a different kind of courage." We stood in silence for a moment. Two versions of the same person, separated by timeline divergence but connected by shared purpose. "What will you do now?" I asked. "I've been offered a position, similar to yours. Temporal optimization for my branch. Apparently they need people who understand failure, who know what it costs to make the wrong choice, and people who know how to make the right one the second time." He smiled. "Yeah, that too." Over the years, more Michaels joined the network, not just from Echo 7, other agents who'd been fragmented by different missions, other people learning to exist as plural selves. We created support systems, therapeutic frameworks, ways to integrate the experience of being multiple without losing the benefits of diverse perspectives. Some people chose to remain fragmented, found strength in their plurality. Others worked toward integration, collapsing their versions into single unified selves. I stayed plural, maintained connection with my other selves, found that I made better decisions with access to 14 different perspectives on every problem. 10 years after Echo 7, I received an invitation from Sarah Mitchell. Not the young Sarah from 2019, an older Sarah, from a timeline 40 years in her future. The note was simple. "I know what you did, all of you. I'd like to say thank you." I jumped to the coordinates. A quiet house in suburbs of Boston. Year 2059. Sarah Mitchell, age 93, opened the door. Behind her, I could see photos. Grandchildren. Great-grandchildren. A life fully lived. "Michael Brennan," she said. Or should I say Michaels? Plural? Either works. She invited me in. Made tea. We sat in a living room filled with decades of accumulated life. "My son told me," she said. "David, when he figured out temporal mechanics, he saw the branch points, saw what I became in timelines where he died, and saw what happened in timelines where we both lived. Are you angry? That we manipulated your timeline? Angry? She looked surprised. I'm grateful. In the timelines where I survived alone, I became a monster, started a war, killed millions in pursuit of changing what couldn't be changed. And in the timelines where I died, David saved thousands but grew up without a mother. Both options terrible in different ways. And this timeline? This timeline gave me my son, gave me my life, gave me the chance to be someone good instead of someone who causes suffering. How could I be angry about that? I felt something loosen in my chest, validation I hadn't known I needed. The other Michaels, Sarah continued, the ones who saved David, the ones who created these timelines, they saved my soul as much as my life, maybe more. We were just trying to find a better solution. You found it, and you paid a price, didn't you? Fragmentation, existing across multiple timelines, that can't be easy. It's not, but it's worth it. Knowing that this exists, that you exist. Happy. Whole. She reached across and took my hand. Her grip was strong despite her age. Then let me give you something back. Permission. To stop carrying the weight. To know that what you did was right. That the sacrifice mattered. I left that house feeling lighter than I had in years. Because she was right. I had been carrying weight. Guilt over fragmenting myself. Uncertainty over whether our intervention was justified. Fear that we'd created something worse. But seeing Sarah, seeing the life she'd built, the generations she'd created, the happiness in her eyes, it was worth it. I returned to my timeline, called a meeting of all the Michaels. 14 versions of me gathered in the neutral zone. 14 perspectives on the same question. It's time, I said. Time to integrate. To 3 frowned. Why? The plural consciousness works. We're more effective as multiple versions. Effective, yes. But whole. No. We've been fragments for 10 years. Pieces of a person spread across timelines. And I think we've learned what we needed to learn from that. It's time to come back together. How? asked T7. We exist in different physical timelines. We can't just merge. Not physically. But consciousness isn't bound by physical location. Not anymore. We've proven that with the network. With the way we share thoughts and memories across realities. T9 caught on. You want to merge our consciousnesses. Create a single awareness that exists across all 14 timelines simultaneously. Exactly. Not one Michael. Not 14 Michaels. One consciousness experiencing 14 different physical realities. Truly integrated plurality. The silence was heavy as they considered it. That's never been done, T13 said. We don't know if it's possible, or what it would feel like. No, but we also never knew if saving Sarah and David was possible. We tried anyway. T1 spoke up. I'm in. I've been fragmented longest. I'm ready to be whole again. Even if whole means something different than it used to. One by one, the others agreed. The integration took 3 weeks, facilitated by temporal engineers who were equal parts terrified and excited by what we were attempting. They set up quantum entanglement between our neural patterns, created pathways for consciousness to flow across timeline boundaries, built a framework for singular awareness distributed through multiple physical forms. The moment of fusion was... I can't describe it. There aren't words. Imagine being one person. Then imagine being 14 people simultaneously. Same thoughts, same identity. But 14 different physical locations, 14 different timelines, all experienced at once. I was in Boston, and New York, and Los Angeles, and London, all simultaneously, all real, all me. For the first few days, it was overwhelming. Too much input, too many perspectives, but gradually, I learned to navigate it. To shift attention between physical locations without losing connection to the whole. To experience 14 lives as one integrated existence. I was truly plural, truly whole, for the first time. The temporal optimization department expanded under my leadership, or our leadership. Hard to use singular pronouns when you're 14 people. We pioneered techniques for managing plural consciousness, helped other fragmented agents integrate, showed them that fragmentation didn't have to mean brokenness. Some chose integration like I did. Others preferred to remain separate but coordinated. Both were valid. The work changed me, changed us. We saw temporal intervention not as maintaining control but as creating possibilities. Not as enforcing single timelines but as nurturing multiple healthy branches. 20 years after Echo 7, I received another message from Sarah. This time from a timeline 65 years in her future. David wants to meet you, it said. The David from my timeline. The one you saved. He has something to show you. I jumped to the coordinates. A laboratory. Cutting-edge temporal research facility. Year 2084. David Mitchell, age 65. Brilliant and alive thanks to 14 versions of me making different choices, greeted me warmly. Agent Brennan. Or should I say agents? Michael is fine. He led me through the facility, showed me work his team was doing, advanced temporal mechanics, way beyond what existed in my original time. We've been building on your work, David said. The Plural Selves Initiative. The idea that consciousness can exist across multiple timelines. It's revolutionary. I'm glad it helped. Helped? It changed everything. Look at this. He pulled up a display. Showed a network of connected consciousnesses. Hundreds of them. Thousands. All integrated across timeline branches. This is the Distributed Humanity Project. People choosing to exist as plural selves, experiencing multiple timelines simultaneously. It started with what you pioneered. I stared at the display. This is massive. It's the future. Not everyone chooses it. Most people prefer singular existence. But for those who want it, who need it, it's available. And it's expanding human capability in ways we never imagined. How? Think about it. A scientist experiencing their research across 14 timelines, seeing 14 different experimental outcomes simultaneously. A teacher learning from 14 different groups of students at once. An artist creating 14 variations of the same piece and experiencing all of them as one creation. But the cost is high, yes. Fragmentation is difficult. Integration is harder. But for those who choose it, the benefits outweigh the costs, and we've gotten better at supporting people through the process, thanks to your work. We talked for hours about temporal ethics, about the nature of consciousness, about what it means to be human when humanity can exist across multiple realities. When I left, David gave me something. A medal, custom made, engraved with 14 names, all variations of Michael Brennan. This is from the people you saved, he said. Not just me, not just my mother, but the millions whose lives improved because you and your other selves chose to break the rules, to find a better way. I returned to my timelines. All 14 of them. Placed the medal in my office. Offices. Plural. And I thought about the journey. From singular agent following orders to plural consciousness existing across realities. From trying to maintain single timeline to helping create flourishing across multiple branches. It wasn't what I expected when I accepted that first briefing about Echo 7, but it was better. Now, 30 years later, I'm recording this. All 14 versions of me, speaking simultaneously across timeline branches. My name is Michael Brennan, singular, and we are the Michaels, plural. We exist in fragments. We exist as one. We exist in the spaces between timelines and in the solid reality of 14 different physical forms. We've learned that identity isn't singular, that consciousness can be distributed, that the self is more flexible than we ever imagined. We've learned that sometimes the right choice means breaking rules, that sometimes the better solution isn't the one you were sent to enforce. We've learned that fragmentation can be a gift, that plurality can be strength, that existing across multiple realities gives perspective that singular existence never could. And most importantly, we've learned that there's no single correct timeline, no one true version of events, just infinite possibilities. And our job is to help create the best outcomes across as many of them as possible. To any temporal agent who might find this recording, who might face their own impossible choice, who might fracture into multiple versions of themselves, know this: fragmentation isn't the end. It's a beginning, a chance to become something more than you were. The weight will be heavy, the confusion will be real, the cost will be high, but the possibility, the sheer beautiful possibility of being multiple, of experiencing reality from 14 different perspectives simultaneously, of having access to infinite variations of yourself for wisdom and support. That possibility is worth it. I look at my hands, 14 sets of hands, in 14 different timelines, all mine, all me. I think about Sarah Mitchell, living her happy life, surrounded by grandchildren and great-grandchildren. I think about David Mitchell, brilliant scientist, saving thousands, creating new frameworks for temporal research. I think about the millions of lives improved by our intervention, by our choice to break rules and find better solutions. And I think about the 14 versions of me, once fragmented, now integrated, now whole in ways that singular existence never could be. Was it worth it? Every single version of me answers yes.